When I think about him, I see this kind, funny guy, kind of clownish now and then. But he was a happy and really loved all. Not to bed long. So we have other people that are going to be giving speeches. And I just say thank you.
So I will second that. Thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of meeting almost all of you. We've got the University of New Haven lacrosse crowd. We've got family, the work crowd. We have more family. I do want to say for anybody who is coming up and talking, you are talking to the live stream world as well, so just keep that in mind. But I don't have too much to say on my dad. I think about him all the time. It's been really fun looking through all the pictures. But a lot of other things remind me of him. Just farts. Simple things like. But yeah, it's just really great to have everybody gathered here. I mean, he didn't like recognition, but he really loves every single one of you. It's just really great to have everybody in the room. You guys are all great people, and we love you.
Now it's my turn. I have something right now, and I left it at home because I didn't print it. But one of the fondest memories of my father is the imaginative, unbelievably creative person that you would never string together ever. And I would send him my papers in school for him to edit, and I would get like the 7th copy of that. Okay, it's good enough. And he was sarcastic, he was grumpy, and he was great with that. And we will miss him anyway. So, thank you guys so much. That's so much.
So, we'd love to open the floor to anybody else who wants to come and say a few words.
I go first.
Good
People write for a living. Type a lot for a living. So, do I need to stand closer to that?
No, you're fine.
So first I want to ask, if you knew Rich from UConn, to raise your hand. Okay. You guys are just on to come like this. Because I knew Rich, well, I'll tell you. So first I want to read some brief remarks from Will Verhoff, who was lacrosse coach at UNH for several years and coached Rich for at least 2 seasons. So he's not able to be here. Listen, Florida. He's not able to be here right now because he was gallivanting around Europe. So this is what he wrote for this occasion. You were not just one of the founders of the University of New Haven lacrosse varsity team. You were not just a terrific goalie. You were not just one of the lacrosse Final Four loyalists. You were not just a drinking buddy. You were not just a comedian who made me laugh. You were not just an all-around sports fan and the critiques that went with it. You were not just a huge UConn supporter. You were not just a good husband, father, and grandfather. You were also my friend, your old coach, Will Veilleux. So I've done this a couple times before. I'm sorry? I've done this a couple times before. Sometimes I seem to end up talking a lot about myself, or at least my experience with the person I'm eulogizing. So if it seems like I do that a lot, I apologize for that right now. It's hard to quantify the friendship I enjoyed with Rich. It goes way back. I'll come to that in a minute. But if the depth of a friendship can be measured in emails, I think I know the hands down. Because Rich and I used to email back and forth every day, numerous times a day. In the last year, he also started texting me, when he was at the, sitting in the car waiting for Chris. So it was the first thing I do every day after I read the paper, put on a pot of coffee. And to give you some idea, I sent him 13 emails the day before he passed away. And I got 7 back from him that day. The day before that, I sent him 14. He emailed me back 8 times. So I did some other checking. In January, I sent him 240 emails. That's an average of about 7.5 a day. So we actually exchanged a couple of emails the day he passed away. And I thought I'd read that one, because it illustrates something else I won't say about him. He said, "Good that you don't have to go out. We're anticipating another storm Thursday. EMTs just left. Tried to get out of bed to go to the bathroom and slid off the bed to the floor. A couple of short guys got me up." Yeah, that brings up another point I want to say about Rich Veilleux. I was going to say he never complained. I'm going to qualify that but as far as his struggles with MD and his kidneys and all the complications that those brought along, he was never bitter about that. At least he wasn't to me. He wasn't angry about it. He didn't complain about it. And I thought he handled it with a lot of strength and grace. And it would be very easy for someone facing those kind of challenges to become bitter, and for that bitterness to be reflected in their relationships with other people. I thought he handled it with great equanimity. The only thing I ever heard him complain about was times when he went to dialysis and he tried to find the vein and stick it one time. Now, no one can deny he had a great sense of humor. You don't have to be an idiot to think I didn't have a good sense of humor. He was a lover of music. And sometimes you just join in on a song on the radio, just singing snatches or bits and pieces of things. I suppose the magnitude or the depth of our friendship could be measured in the fact that I could really tell Rich anything that I needed to. I did. But there's no one else in my life that I could open up to so completely. And be so transparent with, without hesitation, without reservation. Sometimes I look back and wonder what he saw in me. But anyway, so we became friends. We were still teenagers at the University of Haven, still New Haven College at the time. It was the fall of 1970. I just turned 18 that November, and Rich turned 20 that same month. So I don't have a real firm recollection of him when we first met, but I do remember him sort of being in the background. I've been, I call it, quote, running on the cross-country team because I was the slowest guy. And I went to the student newspaper office to complain that they never ran any stories about the cross-country team in the sports section. So I was talking to Bob Zide, the sports editor at the time, and Rich was standing right there in the background. I remember seeing him there. And so I said to Bob, how come you guys never write about the cross-country team? And he said, why don't you do it? So that was kind of fateful because that sort of set me on the road to working on the student newspaper and my friendship with Rich and Tony over here, another guy on the newspaper, and eventually the lacrosse team. So, another illustration of his impact on our friendship together. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm a real high-tech guy. So, my first semester in college, I worked in a room in a little old lady's house with a couple of guys. And I made the dean's list that year. I think I had a 3.0 or 3.2. And the next semester, Rich and I moved in the dorm together and shared a room together. And I went from 3.0 down to 1.8 in academic probation. So if you didn't know it, Rich was a very key member of the newspaper staff. Came out every week. At least for part of that time, he was actually designing the newspaper. So we had like a drafting table in the newsroom office and overlooked the hallway with a glass panel into the student center. So he'd be working on that drafting table, designing the newspaper, and you could see everybody walking by. And speaking of sarcasm, he'd always make some sarcastic remarks about somebody going by. He was most known by anyone who read the paper, especially guys in the fraternities, because he wrote a weekly column about intramural sports competition. And he used it to gently poke fun at all these guys in the fraternities. And they loved to read their name in the paper. The name of his column was Icky Dicky's Intramurals. So his nickname was Icky Dicky, or ID for short. And people, even to this day, refer to him as ID. So I'm guessing he gave himself that name because he gave everybody else in the newspaper staff a name. And guys in the lacrosse team. Bob Zine, whom I mentioned earlier, he became the Mighty Zinger, or Zinger, or just Zing. Another guy, Kevin Meehan, he used to wear sunglasses all the time playing ping pong in the student center. He ended up on the newspaper staff, and Rich christened him Eyes because of the sunglasses. Tony, another guy over here, became Tony Crocodile, just became Croc for short. Okay. Another guy over here on the lacrosse team, Jim McKinnon, just became Madman.
What's up, you?
Yeah, me. My nickname was Freak. So it was all part of the culture of being on the newspaper, and our intramural team was the News Nerds. I guess Rich came up with that name. And he actually had a title for himself. He was the Imperial Wizard of Nerds. So after that spring semester, we were kind of joined to the hip. The next year, the fall semester, we took a room in the YMCA downtown New Haven. Then in the spring semester, we shared a room in this little old lady's house down in West Haven. So in the spring semester of '72, Rich and another guy from Baltimore managed to recruit enough guys to start a lacrosse team. And it was a club sport for the first 2 years. The other guy was George Sexton, who's in a fraternity for law enforcement majors. And they recruited a lot of guys in the fraternity to come up for the team. And since I was Rich's friend, I was on the team. So Rich was our goalie that first year. And he didn't particularly look like an athlete. He had a little bit of a gun on him back then. He smoked like crazy, but he was a heck of a goalie. He was big. He was like a big cat. He was quick. And we only had a couple guys on the team that had played before. He was one of them, obviously. So he was really like the backbone of our defense. He was like almost like another coach on the team because the guy that coached us, he had never played lacrosse before. Now, one of the most memorable experiences I had playing with Rich was a game our first season at Wesley University. And this is back in the wooden stick era. We played with wooden sticks. Rich made a save. And he caught the ball in his goalie stick. And he started jogging up the field. Well, when he played goalie, he played with sweatpants on. So if the ball hit him down here, he would take the sting out of the ball, hitting him a little bit. He started jogging up the field with a stick like this here. And the string of the sweatpants came loose. He fell over down. So now he's reaching down like this with one hand on the stick, and his jock strap. But that's something that sticks with you. And incidentally, that year, Tim Belichick played was playing lacrosse those same years at Wesleyan, and we probably played against him that game. He was kind of sometimes on again, off again in college. He skipped semesters here and there, just like I did for various reasons. So he was sort of on hiatus in the spring of '73. Didn't play that year, but he was on the team again in the spring of '74. That was the first year he became a varsity sport. So he was the starting goalie of the first varsity team. So we had another memorable event that was related to the team in the spring of '73. And the team at that point was treated like an ugly stepchild by the athletic department. We were not allowed to play home games on the athletic field because we encroached on the baseball field. So we kind of had a running joke. Well, somebody was going to go dig up the baseball field. Well, one night after we had a sufficient number of beers at our favorite watering hole, Rich and I and two other guys decided to dig up the baseball field. And Jim, this guy up here, drove us up here. Chickened out of the last. So we had a screwdriver, a broken piece of the shovel. And this is like, I don't know, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're digging holes in the first base line, digging holes in the pitcher's mound, and we actually dug up home plate. And our crowning achievement that night, which I believe was Rich's idea, was we took home plate and just set it like the front door of the athletic center. By the way, a guy who was on the soccer team overheard us at that bar and ratted us out the next day to Kansas security. So we ended up turning ourselves in for the good of the team. We had to go to student court, we're on trial and all that stuff. We were suspended from the team for the following year. We later appealed and we were reinstated on the team the next year. One night after game, we were at our coach's bar in downtown New Haven. Yeah, that's right. Our coach, Will Verhoff, owned the bar in downtown New Haven. You think we went there once in a while? Yeah. So a teammate and I were sitting in his car outside the bar listening to a tape recording that one of the student newspaper sports reporters had done. He did like a play-by-play of the game. And Rich came out of the bar and wanted to get in the car with us. But the guy who owned it didn't want to let him in because Rich was a little bit tipsy. So Rich rears back and kicks out the little vent window on my side of the car. And stands there, looks at me and says, "Now look what you did." He sat down on the sidewalk right away because he had a big cut in his heel. We could take him up the street to St. Raphael's Hospital. He was stitched up. So one of those semesters that Rich was off, he could have actually been in college because he got a big student loan from a bank in Maryland. He showed me the check. It was over $1,000. Some bank in Maryland. But instead of using it to pay his tuition, he went out and bought stereo systems, speakers about this talk. You know? A little bit irresponsible. He was kind of a rebel. Another time when we lived in West Haven, I was on campus and borrowed a friend to go get Rich and bring him to campus. And after I picked him up, he decided he wanted to visit a friend of ours who dropped out of school and lived way up in Torrent. So we just appropriated my friend's car for the day and drove up to Torrent. And before we got to the guy's house, we stopped at a bakery. I think it was this guy's birthday. And Rich bought some kind of cake or pie with whipped cream. And we finally met with our friend. He was hiding behind like this and smashed the kid's face. Something else I want to point out, I'm getting close to my end here. I want to point out Rich was getting hired to work in the New Haven Journal-Courier when he was still in school or in between school. He'd be kind of hit and miss in college, but he obviously demonstrated a good talent for journalism. So, and when he started there, for your information too, he wrote obituaries, but he was also a police reporter. So eventually we went our separate ways. I got married, graduated, moved to Virginia. Fast forward to 2001, I organized a reunion of guys from UNH lacrosse teammates. And it was at the NCAA championship game at Rutgers University that year, Memorial Day weekend. So Will Verhoff, our old coach, he'd been going to these for a number of years. And I think Rich had gone to a few too. But we rounded up a lot of guys. That's this picture right here. Rich's name. We had about 20 guys, most of them hadn't even seen each other since graduating from college. And since then, after that, Rich and I reconnected. So the last more than 20 years, we've been going to those championship games together, Memorial Day weekend, share our hotel room together. I got to New Hampshire and Canterbury a few times to visit him in person. So he was a really great friend of me, one true confidant, one in this. In closing, here's a little passage from the book of Proverbs, chapter 18. It says, "There's a friend who sticks closer than a brother." He was like a brother to me.
I gotta go up there quick before I get too nervous. I figured I'd jump right in. I am not gonna be as long as you. That's why we said get the top on and then pull up. Well, he has papers, so I did better. I put it all on my phone. For me, it's speaking. I have my notes and all that. But I'm Jim McKinnon anyway. I went to the University of New Haven, played lacrosse, and that's where I don't know how I got mixed up with all these crazy nuts, but it ended up, a great time. The greatest time of my life, before I got married and had children. It was the greatest time of my life. Was going to New Haven and playing lacrosse with these guys. I mean, just great guys and friends all the way. And Rich, of course, he was my friend for life. I mean, for life. It was a tough situation when I got the call about Rich. And my condolences to Chris and the family from me. Where's Chris? Oh, there you go. Okay, so for me, my wife Joanne, couldn't make it today to the shower. My whole entire McKinnon family, Rich and Chris, we would go and visit them. They'd come down. They attended family events like weddings, anniversaries. They thought they were part of our family. They'd come in, oh, there's Rich and Chris. That's Icky Dicky, right? Even little grandkids, where's Icky Dicky? He's right over there. So we really just did have some great times there. I met Rich. We had this intramural basketball stuff going on. So when we first started here, I was on a team, and the newsroom with Timmy and who else, but Rich was on that team. Okay, so we would play each other. I didn't know who he was, so we'd play against him. So the first time, we're playing, he goes up for a shot, I foul him. I definitely foul him. So Rich is there like, foul me. I said, you're still walking, aren't you? Right? So, needless to say, the game goes on a little bit, I get the ball, I go down there, Rich hammers me. When it's down. So I look at him, he said, you're still walking, aren't you? So I said, yeah, I'm still walking. So that's how we met. So that was his stuff. And so afterwards, I signed up for lacrosse, right? I say, I played basketball, football, stuff. I played a little bit of hockey, growing up, but I never really played lacrosse. So I signed up for lacrosse. So I go in there at first practice, right? I put my name down. First practice, I go down there. And who do I see when I walk on there? Is this guy that I had all this trouble with in the basketball game. I said, that's you? And he looked at me, he said, that's you? And he said, yeah, that's it. But after that, there was a bond that never left. I mean, it was that close. We established each other right away. That we knew. I said, I was playing defense. I couldn't run that fast, so they put me in defense right in front. I was faster than Rich, but that's why he was in goal. So I was on defense in front. So we were, of course, had been together a long time there. And, it was just so much fun playing with him. When Will Bearhoff came in here and was hired as coach, he's All-American North Carolina, I think. North Carolina, he was All-American. He knows a lot about the game. He comes in, right? And he tells me, like, at our reunions, he says, I went to lacrosse for a long time in my life, Will Stone. He says, I had never been associated with a bunch of guys like you guys. That first year, he says, I didn't think I was ever going to survive. I thought I was going to get fired, arrested. I didn't know what was going to happen. The phone was going to ring every night if somebody's in trouble. He said, lacrosse guy's a little crazy, but you guys were above that. You guys just went a little too far. So it is so funny. But, we played defense like that. And we had all good friends. We had Tommy Finasco, who he had one of the best shots I'm telling you. Cannon he used to have. So Tommy was on defense with me, and Tony Mortale, called Morticia, Tony Morticia over there. He was there. Randy was there. Art Penna was there. We had a real close defense right there. But the leader of our whole thing was Rich. Rich was in goal. Every time they would score a goal, we get blamed for it. We're defending. You didn't get it. He got the shot off. You shouldn't have let him catch the ball. So we get it back to him. Why, can you make a stop? We call him Swiss cheese because the ball's going through him all the time. That kind of thing. But it was all in fun. I have really seriously, I didn't have a lot of experience playing lacrosse, but then I did it. I never saw a goalie make so many saves like he did. I mean, this guy stood on his head making saves. I mean, he was just a terrific goalie. And he helped us out so much back there. And he talked to any of these guys that I just mentioned, or Timmy right over there. He was just a terrific goalie. And he's the one that kept us in a lot of games. We did win some games. Funny, but we did win some games. But it was Rich. Win or lose, he was the guy that was right there for us, and he kept us in these games. And he was a leader. He was a good guy, and he was a guy that after the game really. Banter on and off the field. After the game, we were together like this, all of us. It was just, go after one, we go after all of us. I mean, that's the way this team was. And I think we proved that a few times in places. We were that close. Anyway, just a few quick stories about Rich. One time I was playing goalie, and Andrew, one time playing goalie. And this one kid was coming around and making some shots and talking a lot. So Rich was there, this time. Tell me, he said, you guard this guy this time and let him come through. You let him come through. I'm going to come out and I'm going to smash him. He's not going to let me come, but I'm coming. So push him toward the net. So he's coming like the net on the side, and I'll come right out. I don't care if he scores or not because he's not going to see it that way. So I said, oh, this is perfect right away out. So right away, go like this. He goes right around. So as soon as he goes right around, here comes Rich. He comes out, high stick, elbows, I don't know if I can full down. He comes out and he just lays this guy out. I mean, he hits this guy so hard, the guy went into your back at me, so I just finished the job. And he went down. And the guy's laying there, doing that. And I think Rich said it first, and then I did. You're still walking, aren't you? So we said, I said, that was a good thing. Second thing, this was a good one. We had, as we were getting older, we had some freshmen coming on the team, and it was two kids who were kind of small on the team, and they were getting, the guy was hitting them, and, he was really talking to them a lot of banter back and forth with them, and they didn't say nothing. So Rich is talking to me, he says, I'm sick of that guy. I'm sick of them, he's hitting this squad, he's hitting them a lot. He says, take care of him. I said, okay. I said, I'll take care of him. All right, I'll let him come down. I'll take care of him. Don't worry about it. He said, you take care of him. I'll make the save. It's okay. So I'm ready to go. The guy comes around. I don't get 2 feet for it. Here comes Rich, like a freaking freight train. He comes out like this, and he knocks him down. And I looked at him, both going around. I said, I thought I was going to do that. I changed my mind. I had all the fun. Oh God! I mean, it was those type of things, that we did. I tell you, the southern trip that we took down there that last year, there was so many stories. You could talk all day and all night what happened, but we, which was like not a shocker. I never want to say that, but we beat NC State. We went down there and played Duke, lost. North Carolina lost, but we beat NC State, and they had a big basketball. David Thompson on the team that year. They were at the state champ, the NCAA championship that year, real close to it, and we beat them. And it was like thousands of people in the stand. I mean, it was great. It was a great atmosphere, and we did beat them. And a lot of it because of Rich, with the saves that he made and all that. And we celebrated that like we've never celebrated. I mean, it was the greatest time. I really don't remember what happened that night, but everybody tells me it was really good. So So when we got this, and I know that, it was supposed to be casual, but I wore this lacrosse tie. Now, this lacrosse tie, Will, the coach, bought this tie for us because he said, you guys never have ties. We wear ties when we go away. So I bought the ties for you to wear. So we wear. Of course, everybody lost them. I don't know whether Rich had shoes still or not, but they lost them. So I dug mine out. This was coming up. I dug mine out. And I said to my wife, I said, hey, I found it, I'm going to take it to the cleaners, and get it, and I'm going to come down and wear it. That's great. So I take it to the cleaner. She says, oh, I'll be ready. Now it's Monday. We'll be ready Thursday. I said, oh, perfect. Thinking, so, today's Sunday. I'll be fine. I'll get it. Okay. Well, I go down to Thursday. I said, hey, where's my tie? It's taking us a little longer to clean this tie, because it must have had nine, mustard stains on it, beer stains, some whiskey, there's stuff all over it. So it's a little bit longer. Friday went out. A little bit. I said, well, it can't be a little bit longer. I said, I got to go. So they finally got it out. But I wore this today, and I hope if this thing's live streamed, you said, and maybe Will's watching it or something. I still have this, Will. I don't know where the camera is. I still, right there? Oh, all right. I still have this, Will. It's still here. It's still here. This is the actual original tie. I wear it today in honor of Rich. And, like I say, we last years, we visited them in Connecticut and up in New Hampshire, up in the games, the Union games. They come down to ours, like I said, they would come to our family events, weddings, and things like that, and our anniversary party, and it was just a great time. And I'm so glad, that I went to the chance to meet Rich. He's rest in peace. He was my friend. Thank you.
I'm Tony Grockmo, and I was on the University of Haven newspaper with Rich. I did not play lacrosse. I've never played lacrosse. I don't plan on playing lacrosse. But I think Rich liked me anyway. When he said he was going to be shorter than Tim, I thought, or it wasn't going to be as long as Tim, I thought he meant shorter. Let's see what I can do. It's a testament to Rich that college from 55, nearly 60 years ago, I want to tell you about somebody you all know and love anyway. He was just that kind of guy. I was a little older than the rest of the guys in college. I was in the Army, got out from college, and I was married, so I had a girl, unlike all of them. And Christine, my wife, was over here. We would have the guys over for dinner sometimes, and we had a board hockey game, and the UNH newsroom also had a board hockey game, and we would play these furious games of board hockey. I mean, the board would be up in the air and flying around. Christine, my wife, beats Rich in the board hockey game, but she had a strategy. She was going to wait a few beers after dinner. She wasn't drinking beer. And she put the potato chip bowl right next to Rich. So his hands were a little lubricated, and he couldn't quite handle the hockey stick. But Rich, I got to go to some of the lacrosse reunions. They wait for the national championships that would be around the country. We go in Maryland and stuff. So we went a few times, and one time, I hadn't seen Rich for like 5 years. I hadn't seen him for 5 years. I'm in the hotel lobby, there's Rich, there's some problem with their room. And Rich is in the back room, the neighbor reservation, came into the room, we're having an argument. And I happen to have a case of beer with me. I hadn't seen him for 5 years. He said, are those cold? Comes over, doesn't wait for an answer, comes over, grabs one. Rich sits down on the couch. How do you guys go? And the amazing thing about Rich is he had this veneer that he didn't care about anything, and he, whatever you thought of him, he was going to be Rich. But I have never met anyone kinder than Rich was. he was just, he was sarcastic. And if you were a jerk, you might have got a little sharp edge. But it was just sarcastic, you know. But it was never mean. And he really cared about people. But if you were hurting, he knew it and he tried to do something. And we've all, I think we're all better people for having known him.
All right, I know it's a little shorter here, but. So, I'm Paul Charnier, and I consider Rich my best friend. We met in 1980 when I joined the Norwich Bulletin. Rich was already a newspaper reporter there. And we immediately hit it off as friends. I just love Rich. His great sense of humor. He didn't suffer fools easily, as many of you know. As a newspaper guy, he could spot a phony or a pretentious person from a mile away. He helped me as a newspaper guy to build in a little more skepticism in talking to town officials and such. He taught me to kind of know the subject as good or better than they did when you went to interview them. He was a great, great writer and a great news guy. He was a great newspaper guy. So the fact we met in 1980 and became friends, it was this incredible period in our lives. Over that next decade, we would both get married. We would have children. We would both buy houses. We would change careers. Rich went on to the University of Connecticut Communications. I went to the day newspaper, leaving the Bulletin, went to the day newspaper. So I think, this intensity of change going through our lives, I think kind of really cemented our relationship. And it was great to have, someone like Rich to just kind of sound things off. And, it's not that we had these profound conversations. Rich sort of had this attitude, like, kind of expect the worst. And then when it's not the worst, then you squeeze in to celebrate, So, it's kind of sort of this, strange philosophy that worked for him, and it kind of worked in our relationship. Some of the greatest times we had is every year we would go up to the sister Eleanor and her husband Pete's cave house, and we had this arrangement with them that we'd go up like in April or something, and we'd get it opened up for the year. We'd help clean it out for them and get it ready, and that in itself was kind of a fun thing to do for the two families. And we made it fun. We went up there in the chill of April, and then the payoff was they give us a week in July to spend. The house was ours, the summer house was ours at the Cape, and I think during those Cape weeks, my kids still remember it. We're all here today. I think they considered Chris and Rich like aunt and uncle to them, and Kathy, my wife Kathy, and I, we feel the same way about Adele and Andrew. We became close like family. It just fits so well. I guess the thing I most miss is having that sounding board. We're still going through changes, and things will be happening with, I've got 4 grandkids now, and I still have this feeling like I gotta contact Rich and tell no, I can't. And it's hard. It's really hard. Those feelings still come. You know, Rich, he had, someone said earlier, he had great with the sarcasm and such, but it was never mean-spirited, you know, it was part of the fun, part of the give and take. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard it. If I would come over to his house and get something I was supposed to bring, if we're heading out to a football game and I was running late, I would hear it, "You geek." I almost like to hear it again, "You geek." You know? So, a couple of stories, just, you know, there's so many stories. There's so many cookouts, you know, so many times at the beach, and so many times going over to their pool and getting crazy, tossing the kids in the pool, you know, so many stories. So, like, how do I narrow this down? So, you know, want a couple interesting ones. So, I don't know if you remember, back in the 1990s, Bob Kraft, the Patriots owner, wanted to build a new stadium. And Massachusetts was not cooperating. Rich and I are big Patriots fans. And couldn't get any help from Massachusetts to build this new stadium in Massachusetts. So it comes the announcement that he's reached an agreement with Governor Rowland, the governor of Connecticut, the governor who later be indicted and imprisoned. But at that time, Bob Kraft announced he's got a deal. The Patriots are coming to Hartford. They're going to build a new stadium in Hartford, Connecticut. And I called Rich. I said, "You hear this? I can't believe this. You know, we should get on the season ticket waiting list." So that's what we do. We send in, I was $100 each for the 2 tickets we put in for. And we put in for and so Rich is very skeptical of this. He says he's playing them. He's never bringing them to Hartford. He just wants Massachusetts to help him out and give him some bucks to build the stadium. Well, that could happen. All right, we'll put in for the season tickets. Well, of course, Rich is right. You know, Kraft dumps Rowland, and there's a deal with Massachusetts is going to build this new stadium up in Massachusetts, Gillette. So, you know, so the years go on, that kind of passed. The Patriots win a Super Bowl with this new young quarterback, Tom Brady. It's kind of shocking win. And the next season, their new stadium is open. But we're still on the waiting list. Those tickets are still on the waiting list. So one day, I'm getting my mail. It's like just like a few weeks before the Patriots are going to open their new stadium, their first exhibition game. I get the mail, I got an envelope, and it's like, New England Patriots is the return address. Open it up, and it says, "Just want to inform you, you've come off the waiting list. There's tickets available for you." It gives me a deadline, and I open it up. It's got a little, map of the stadium, and it says your tickets in section 123, row 36. I'm like, how is this possible? Right? Because I just had a friend at work who he was on the waiting. He had just come off the waiting list a few weeks earlier. He was up in like section 300, like 2 rows from the top, like in the nosebleeds. I'm looking at the stadium, and we're like 36 rows. I go to Rich's house. I said, "Rich, look at this. We're coming off the waiting list. For some reason, we're in section 123. We're 36 rows." He's like, "Nah, that can't be right." He says, "Well, yeah, how will you know?" So we get him for the season tickets, and and we go to that first game, and it was the first preseason game. We walk in the main entrance and walk about 100 steps. There's our section 123. A couple steps down, here's the field, like right there. Well, I can't believe it. We're high five. You can see the emblems on the helmets. It's right there. And for years we had those tickets for years, and we never got over the fact, like, of all the things that might have happened negative in our lives, this must be the payback. Somehow divine intervention. And what it turned out is there was a platform right next to where our seats was for people with disabilities. It was like one of these ramps. And the Patriots were signing off and everything, they didn't know if they needed more disability seating. And just as they're signing the last, getting all the inspection, they said, no, you're good, you got enough. So they had this little area, so they put seats in, and I guess we were next on the list, maybe 50 seats were this platform. And suddenly they had seats and whatever, it was our names, and we came off. So that was the great, those were great days. We had young families, things were tight, a lot of family things. We couldn't go to every game, so we go about half the home seasons. We sell the other ones, help pay for the ones, the ones we could get to. And we would go up and tailgate, you get there early, I better be ready. Get in the truck. Come on, you kid, let's go, get up there. And of course, Rich Veilleux, you heard the stories, he was the life of the party in our section. Everyone had a nickname, they were lacrosse guys. Venetary, he had the Venetary shirt, and hey, Vermont's here. Everyone began to get a nickname in the section. And he was the life of the party when we were there in these Patriots games. The years go by way too quickly. We were friends 45 years. I can't believe it. And unfortunately, as we know, the problem with his legs, the MD became too much, and he said, I can't do it anymore. We had a great run. The Patriots won 5 more Super Bowls during that run. It was the Brady years. The timing, was so good. We had such great times, but it just got to be too much. 2018, I keep the season tickets. Not the same, obviously. But, he never had a chance to say goodbye. Never an official ending, but he kind of just realized he couldn't do it anymore. I said, we got to get you to one more game, so I can't do it. And I said, well, I got to work something out. And I went through some bells and red tape, and I managed to trade in my tickets to one of the games to get a couple of seats in the disability seat. So Rich could go to the, he could sit down, wouldn't be people standing in front of him. He says, all right, I'll do it. December 30th, 2018, I remember, we got to have a last hurrah. And so, we do, we get to the game, we get in our seat, and they're playing the New York Jets. We hated the New York Jets, Rich and I. And they crushed it, 38-3. It was wonderful. But I go down to the section, we sit, and I said, hey, guys, Rich is here. You're kidding, not right now. He said, I couldn't get down here, he's here. And it was, one after another, the guys would sit around us, and the women, they came up to see him. And, when Rich was not an emotional guy, he didn't wear it on his sleeve, but that day it got a little emotional. And the people coming up and wishing him well and such. The other story, maybe he's told this story, I don't know. This is the real story. He tells the story. But another tradition I have at Christmas time is when the kids were younger, we'd have one blowout shopping day. Me and Rich would go shopping. We'd pack the cooler with, snacks and beers and a few, Yukon dips. And we'd sit out for a day-long shopping Christmas extravaganza. We get, presents for the kids and the wives. And Rich kind of took things in stride and stuff, but this one thing, he wanted to get the perfect gift for Chris. He wanted to get that, this perfect gift. And he would agonize over this, and he'd see something, and maybe I should get it. He'd convince himself that maybe it wasn't right. Meanwhile, my wife Kathy would just give me like a shopping list. And I'd be like, oh yeah, a couple of CDs, and slippers, and then all this calendar she likes. I told her, this would infuriate Rich. He was agonizing over what to get, and I'm just kind of going through it. So we end up at Benny's, Benny's in Norwich, it's long going. We can pick up mostly some toys for the kids. And I come back, we're going around finding stuff. I come back to Carrie, I got a toaster in my hand. And he says, you're giving Kathy a toaster? And I was not giving my wife a toaster. Our toaster busted at home, so I saw one on sale, I grabbed it. But this was too good of an opportunity to pass on. So I said, Yeah, it's not on our list, but I think she'll really like it. He says, if I gave Chris a toaster, she'd throw it at me. You're not giving your wife a toaster. He said, I don't know, it's got a bagel set in there. And so we're in the middle of Andy's, he begins to try to take it off, and he's At that point, I couldn't keep it up anymore. I started cracking up. And then it became an ongoing, joke, that if he couldn't find something, I said, you get a toaster. But those are so many good times. I'd give anything for another week in the Cape with these guys and Rich and Chris. Another football game, it's not to be, but I'm a better man. I had a richer life for all those times and all those great times together. So, Rich, thanks for the good times. I miss you dearly, but you're always in my thoughts.
Anybody else? Well, thank you. Feel free. We have a place until 4. Bar's still open. Still some food to snack on. But thank you so much to everybody for coming.
Okay. Andrew, you should also announce that it's being